Oh yeah. The
Yeah.
the X, that's the Kibata jeans.
Yep.
I love these, man, and they're the overdyed ones, and it's just worn in. Like, it's my favorite pair of jeans, and I'm sure
Oh,
you can't see
cool.
this, but like
No, I
everything
could.
is
That's
wearing them
crazy. Those look
so
good.
great.
I didn't know that both of you were
We're fans.
were down for the brand. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
So, are you in New York or you're in LA?
I'm in New York. Johan is in LA, my partner,
Mm-hmm.
and he would be with us, except he is having a hard time getting his kid out the door today. So
Get it.
those of us with children, it's just what it is.
It's all of us.
Hopefully he can join us, and
Yeah,
when
I'm
he
gonna ask
pops
him.
in, yeah, we'll just rope him in. But why don't you want to? You feeling good? You want to start the show?
Let's roll.
All right, let's do it. All right. Well,
I like it.
welcome to Full Grain Podcast. It's so good to have you here. Why don't
Thanks
you?
for thanks for having me here.
Can you introduce yourself and maybe introduce 3sixteen to us?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Chen. I am one of the partners at 3sixteen. We are based in New York and Los Angeles. We've been making men's jeans and clothing for 19 years now. And we've got a shop in LA. We've got a shop in New York. And we have a solid team of people behind us that help us keep the brand going. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and again, we're gonna get your partner in crime. Hopefully he can join us. If you're comfortable talking without him here about how you guys met and how you ended up creating 3sixteen.
I am messaging him right now because he's like, "Oh, don't do it without me." I'm like, "No, they said to pop in, so please
Yeah,
do."
see,
We can also
get in trouble here.
We edit this too, so we can talk about
No. You
something
can
else too.
people let the people know. They can know. It's a operation that requires flexibility, especially with two dads with young kids. Mine less young. I guess these past few years we've had to adjust and figure out different ways to work. But
Definitely.
Johan is a Bay Area native. I grew up in New York and went to school out in Chicago. And we met because his oldest sister married my best friend from college. 22 years ago, we met in California. Hit it off right away. We had a lot of shared niche interests. I think I've shared this on another podcast, but I remember when I met him, he was wearing a t-shirt that I recognized. And it wasn't a band t-shirt. I think that a lot of people can relate to someone walking down the street wearing an indie band t-shirt that you're really into as well. And you find a instant connection, whether you realize that in conversation or not. But for him, I think it was by a brand called Drunken Monkey, and it ended up getting bigger and blew up. But at the time, it was only sold at a couple of really under the radar stores in the country. He would shop at a store called True in San Francisco on Haight, and it was and still is a very important store in terms of streetwear and where it's grown and built up into now. And I recognized it, and we started a conversation about it. We found out that we were into similar kinds of music and into sneakers, and just kind of built a friendship that way. So this was before 3sixteen even existed. A year or two later, when I came up with the idea with my former partner to start the brand, I reached out to him right away. He was the first person I thought of. I figured he got it. He was into what we were into, and he was in college at the time. He was just starting undergraduate at USC, and I had asked him, "Do you want to get involved somehow? Do you want to rep the brand on the West Coast? Talk to people about it? Go to campus events, whatever." And so he happily obliged and was our West Coast rep for a tiny, 2-person operation for a few years. I ended up parting ways with my partner, and he was finishing school. His third year was his last year, and he was finishing school, and he was looking at a bunch of different opportunities in he had communications major, so I think he had some advertising and PR job offers. And without really knowing whether the brand could support it or not, I asked him if he would be willing to come on as a partner at an extremely low annual salary. And and we haven't missed a paycheck since.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
Back then, you
So,
guys doing? If I'm doing my recon correctly, you were doing T-shirts to start.
mhm. Yeah, we built a brand around what we were really into, which was graphic T-shirts, and these graphic T-shirts were uh, part of this underground streetwear movement and streetwear means something very different today than it did then. Now streetwear is such a big thing that it influences luxury houses, but back then it meant that the brand was privately owned. Usually the artist or the designer was running the brand. Instead of just having really logo driven clothing, it had to do with sharing your interest in music or political statements, and it was message driven, and it was something that, again, if a small subsection of people that were into that type of thing saw it, they would recognize it right away. There were only a few stores in the country that were carrying these types of brands. Yeah, in New York it was Union. In Chicago there was a store called Leaders, 1354. In San Francisco there was True. So there were probably 5 or 10 good stores, and it grew. It ended up growing, and a lot of the brands that came up alongside us ended up getting huge, bringing on investors, and are now household names and sold at Zoomies and PacSun, and that's the path that a lot of them were able to take because there was a lot of money that came into the industry over the years. We clearly did not take that path.
Yeah.
Why do you think you didn't? I mean, back then it feels like before roughly 2010, 2011, it's pretty difficult to do non-brick and mortar retail. So the internet and buying things online was not what it is today. So you were sort of pre e-commerce. Why do you think
Yeah.
you didn't continue on with the t-shirts?
Well, I feel like there's a couple of questions layered in there, so I'll try and knock them out one by one.
I'm trying to pitch you a screwball.
All right. So, what was the landscape like back then? I remember because I was in Chicago. I believe I was finishing up school, or no, I would have finished school by then. But I was familiar with Leaders because I went to school in Hyde Park, and they were on 53rd Street, right by Harold's Chicken Shack.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking in for the first time and being amazed that there was a shop like this that carried brands that I was familiar with, and started talking with the owner, Corey Gilkey, and I had a line sheet in my backpack, and I took it out and I gave it to him and didn't think anything of it. If I was a store owner and was getting line sheets all the time, I'm sure there'd be plenty of things that I wouldn't want to buy, but Corey sent an order in a week later. That was our second season of doing this. There was a lot of door to door, but there weren't that many doors. But even back then, there was a website. There were two websites that I was familiar with. One of them was called Digital Gravel, and the other one was called the Giant Peach. And the Giant Peach was based in the Bay Area, and they were more focused on underground hip hop. So they sold records and tapes and merch from hip hop recording artists, but not mainstream ones. They also carried a bunch of brands, and Digital Gravel specifically existed to focus on these underground brands. And that's where I discovered a lot of things, along with finding things in store. E-commerce is different, right? I mean, if you walk into a store, you could talk to the shop owner, but maybe you just poke around, you're a little too intimidated to ask questions. But at Digital Gravel, they would write extensively about every single t-shirt that they stocked, and you could understand the reference point, and they would tell you about the designer and his history. So that was kind of a teaching tool as well. It introduced me to new music, and in the same way that you'd be in a retail store and something would be playing, and you'd ask them, what are we listening to right now? So I thought that was really special. So e-commerce it existed, but it was nowhere near where it is now. But at that time already, people were making use of it to try and put things out there. So yeah, our goals were one day to sell on Digital Gravel, and one day to try and sell at True or at Union. Over time, those wild dreams actually came true for us. It really was, when I think back on it, it really was a 1 in a million shot, because so many people were trying to do it.
And that was just the t-shirts at that moment?
That was t-shirts, and we
Mhm.
started printing on some sweatshirts, but all these were blank t-shirts that we were buying and designing and printing on. My former partner designed for a few years, and then when Johan came on board as a partner, and my ex-partner left, we brought on Jeff Hamada, who was our good friend and had partnered with us to do the graphic design for many years until we moved on to trying to build a whole collection out. So to answer the second part of your question,
You're right.
how did we get from graphic t-shirts over to jeans and full collection, which is probably, I would guess, what most people that are listening to your podcast know us for now. It wasn't so much that there was money in one and not the other. In fact, the pivot was pretty scary because we had stores that were carrying the brand that were familiar with what we were doing for a long time. And when we decided to launch a full collection, which raw salvage denim that were made in the US was a part of that collection in the fall of 2008, it was kind of outside what most of these stores were ready for. They were buying full collections from other streetwear brands, but those would usually be made overseas, and the prices were just more in line with what you'd find at a skate shop, maybe a little more expensive, but you're not paying more than $100 for a button down. You're probably not paying more than $100 for a pair of jeans. And our jeans, our first pair of jeans that we made were Kaihara denim, sewn in San Francisco. No, sewn in Los Angeles, and they retailed for $175. So while people were into it and they were intrigued, it wasn't really for them.
Right.
And so we went from, at our peak, I think we were selling to 120, 140 retail stores.
That's a lot.
And that, coupled with the recession that came shortly thereafter, because again, we launched this in fall 08, we eventually contracted down to 20 retailers. And some of
Wow.
those retailers were new ones. So we lost the vast majority of the ones that we'd been working with. I would say 5 of them tried to follow along valiantly, and I'm thankful for that, but it just wasn't working for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a money thing. I think it had a lot more to do with Johan and my, I guess, evolving tastes and wanting to make clothes in a way that felt right to us, that related to the other brands that we were looking at, the interest that we had, our growing interest in vintage clothing, and also heavily influenced by our friend Kia and his wife Dimitra, who opened up Self Edge, which I guess at this point is 17 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah. They're in town this week. We're setting up a new storage area for our New York shop at Self Edge, and so we were reminiscing a little bit about that. They gave us a lot. They gave Johan a lot of guidance when we were trying to design our first pair of jeans. I don't think that we would be where we are today without them, even in that initial step, much less partnering to open up the New York and the LA locations together. So we owe a lot to them. To answer your question, it was changing tastes, wanting to make clothing that fit a little bit more in line with what we were into, and really good friends that helped point us in the right direction.
Why did you choose raw denim as the place to go? Because you went there first as part of your collection, or to build the collection.
I think we're going to wait on Johan for that.
Okay.
I have to credit Johan with that because while jeans were always of interest to me, they were on his radar before they were on my radar. To rewind a little bit, Kia was a partner in a store in Burlingame, California, that carried 3sixteen from the beginning. So he's been a part of or adjacent to the brand for a very, very long time, for as long as we've been around. That store focused on streetwear and sneakers. It's called Transit. He was partners in another store called Turf in San Mateo that also carried 3sixteen. And then when he and his wife Dimitra partnered to open up Self Edge, it was a completely new operation. It was not streetwear focused. This was introducing the American market to Japanese denim brands that had never had a presence here before. And so when Johan went into the store for the first time, he'd built a friendship with Kia because he was from the Bay, and whenever he was home on holiday, they'd link up and they would go get coffee and whatnot. And so he went into Self Edge, and I think the first or second time he went in, I kind of want him to tell the story. He bought a pair of jeans, and he told me that he bought a pair of Samurais. He told me how much he paid for them, and it sounded outlandish to me. It shouldn't have, because we've spent that money on other things before, but I I had never spent that kind of money on jeans. But there was something about it that he really fell in love with, and we started talking more and learning from Kia about what he was trying to do with Self Edge. He ended up being a very guiding influence for us when we started to design our first pair of jeans. And clearly, while Japanese brands have influenced us greatly, we weren't trying to make a jean that was in that arena. We could have went to Japan to try and find a manufacturer and, you know, do a full made in Japan jean, but we didn't go that route. So yeah, I do. I think he has a lot to share about it. Okay. So I'll wait on him to jump. He said 5 minutes.
Oh, great.
Okay, good. I'll ask you broader questions then. Did the raw denim thing start on the West Coast, or did it start kind of simultaneously in different places? I've never thought about that, where the first Japanese brands started to trickle in and where they started to get picked up.
If I have my history correct, I think that Blue and Green opened up in New York a few months before Self Edge opened up in San Francisco. Those were the two original stores that were kind of pushing this market. And clearly, it wasn't like one really beat another to it, because it takes time to plan this stuff. I know Kia had been traveling to Japan for maybe years, talking to brands, trying to convince them to allow him to represent the brand stateside. So this was not a thing that you just need. These days, you can open up a retail store and just hit up a bunch of brands, and, you know, with varying degrees of success, and open something up and have product in there. But these brands were not interested in the American market, or they didn't know that there was a customer base here. And to be honest, there really wasn't. He had to build it, and Gordon and Yuji at Blue and Green had to build it and get people interested in what these brands were doing. And so, yeah, they were both working on their own and trying to bring this to fruition and open up stores where you could go and experience the product firsthand and try it on and get your size and receive correct information on how fabric shrinks and how it's going to stretch. Both stores offered a service that you usually would only get at the best Japanese denim stores in Japan, which is chain stitch hemming on a vintage American machine. And so I would say that both of these stores had a very purist viewpoint of what we were selling, and they happened around the same time. I don't really think that anybody was doing it before those two shops were.
Well, so Nick and I were just talking about, before we started speaking with you, the sort of cultural movement that has happened in this raw denim community. We were trying to figure out how that started. And the story you just told, is that sort of the origin of how we're getting raw denim sort of popularized in the culture today? Is that, who should get credit for that, I suppose, is the question.
I think both Self Edge and Blue and Green should get a lot of credit for it. But then on the fashion side, I think that there was a very, very powerful movement that APC was building. Mm-hmm. And that was a different perspective. It was definitely raw denim, but the jeans were, you know, cut more on the fashion side, and it was just a uniform for young creatives, like design directors and architects and whatnot. And in, at least in New York, it became just a part of the wardrobe. You would wear it with your super slim Band of Outsiders button down, and a pair of Common Projects. And these were just ubiquitous, accessible, but products that look really good on you. And I think when it came down to raw denim, a lot of people got their start on APC jeans.
I have a sort of newbie question for you. And I own, I say newbie, and I own like six or eight pairs. Oh, Johan's here. I own a bunch of pairs of denim, but I don't understand like why raw denim became, like, what the value prop was for that material. You know what I mean? Like, why was APC able to say like, hey, you should pay more for these? Hey, Johan.
Hey, Johan.
How you doing?
Hey, guys.
You made it.
I'm very sorry for being late.
No problem. Nice to meet you.
We've never
met, Johan. It's nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Nick Horween is on the left, and Phil Callis is on the right.
Cool.
And they run the podcast together.
Yeah.
Sorry for hopping in late. It's been a crazy morning.
Oh, no problem. I heard you had some kid issues.
Yeah, we all have kids, so it's we get it. Yeah,
I have three kids, so therefore more than three kid issues.
How old are they?
5, 4, and 1.
Yep, you're in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna just let Johan get warmed up. But to your question about value proposition on raw denim,
right?
I think that is something that a lot of people like to hang on to when they first start spending more money on jeans. Either that's something you tell yourself, or that's somebody that someone in a store will tell you, is that they last longer. Therefore, it's okay to spend more money on them. And over time, what you realize is that it's not a straight value proposition. And the reason for that is that cotton garments still break down. Even jeans that are made out of really, really beautiful fabrics, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will last longer for you. In fact, if you are wearing them every day and putting them through a lot of work, which is what a lot of people love to do with the raw denim, you could be shortening the lifespan of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide to not wash them often, you're definitely shortening the lifespan of them. So there's like a I don't know, kind of like a scale here, right? If you want them to look crazy and people have told you not to wash them very often, and they do look really crazy after a while, you lose out on longevity. You know, they're going to rip and tear. If you treat them specifically for utility and you're washing them all the time, maybe you're not going to get super contrasty aging, but they will last longer.
Interesting.
And
okay.
If you bought 5 pairs of cheap Levi's, they will last longer than 1 pair of nice jeans, bar none. Right? If you just wore them back to back to back to back to back. So there has to be some other reason why people spend money on raw denim. I think that people spend money on it because they care about how it's produced, and or they care about how the fabric wears in, and how it changes over time is more important than the strict longevity and durability of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they care about supporting brands that pay a lot of attention to how they make their stuff. So if you put all that together, and you can tack on to that the fact that this is one garment that you can wear all the time, and you don't have to really think too much about it if you really love how they fit you and how they molded to you, then I would say that there's a greater value proposition that consists of a lot of different things. But it's not just buy raw denim because it lasts longer, because it kind of doesn't.
So I asked a question to Andrew Johan, and he told me that I had to wait for you. So he gave us a little bit of a history of you guys, how you guys met, and you being at USC, and then the t-shirt journey. And the question that I asked was, so when you made the decision to start building a collection, why did you start with jeans?
Well, we didn't start with, why did we start making jeans in general? We didn't start with jeans. I think we had started designing collection, and at that point we were making a full collection, and we were making everything from head to toe. We had headwear, we had ties that were cut and blocked and sewn in New York. We had we were doing footwear at the time, made in Maine. It felt like we were building a nice full collection where we had really quality garments to offer, and denim was just one thing that we hadn't attacked yet. But it also felt like something that we couldn't just introduce into the collection without a lot of thought put into it. It took a little bit more time to develop, to sample out and to figure out where we were going to try and fit in the market. We didn't feel like it was just, another button-down shirt or another seasonal jacket that we could add to the collection. It would appear in that season and then sort of be gone. We wanted it to have some longevity in the collection and become more of an ongoing program within the collection. I think initially our idea was to try to make something that was high quality, that was raw, very simply branded or not very heavily branded that could compete at the price points of some of the more entry level raw denim options that were really popular at the time. And then to maybe be a little bit higher quality than some of those brands, and to offer a sort of jumping off point for people that are trying to get into ultimately the higher end Japanese denim.
Interesting. Yeah, I for some reason I thought you went from t-shirts to jeans. I had that wrong.
We went, yeah, we started off, I always say, we started off with t-shirts because that's what you do when you have no idea what you're doing. You know, anybody can get a t-shirt printed.
Ironically, it's probably the hardest thing to start with too, right? It's like everybody
Most
does
options.
t-shirts. Yeah.
In a sense, it's very competitive. So in that sense, yes, it can be the most difficult. But in terms of purely getting it made, I mean, you know, a school club can get t-shirts made. Your, you know, local mom and pop business that wants to sell some t-shirts can get it made. So that's where we started, because it didn't take a lot of technical knowledge about how to produce garments. That took more of an eye for things, an idea of what sort of message that we wanted to portray, how we wanted things to look visually. But there wasn't a lot of technical garment manufacturing knowledge needed early on.
That's something I wanted to ask you about. You're talking about technical. From my reading, it's my understanding that your denim is a little bit different than other people's. Maybe you could describe, I forget, is it 100? It's 100 and like an X after it?
100X, yeah.
Yeah, so and I have the 100XK, which is like the overdyed version. I think you have a few different versions of materials, but maybe you could break down the different denim that you have and explain, you know, what makes it different.
100X denim is the first denim that we ever started making. It's the denim that we launched with, and we still make it to this day.
I got a pair right here. I love these things.
Yeah. So it's a 14.5 ounce indigo warp white weft denim. So classic blue jean looking indigo. It starts off very deep blue. It's different only in that all denims are different. Every single denim is different. And what makes denim different is all of these components that come together to make the fabric. So you have your warp thread, you have your weft thread. Those are two threads. Your warp is the top thread. The weft is the bottom thread, or the thread underneath. They're woven together in varying patterns. Some, you know, the most classic is a 3x1, so it's a twill, but it can be woven in a 5x2 or a 1x1, or it could be in a lot of different arrangements, the way that the top thread and the bottom thread interact. The number of dyes, dips that top thread goes through can change the denim. The thickness, the gauge of the denim, of the yarn rather, that is used to weave the denim. Refinedness or coarseness or the variation in the yarn has a big effect on the denim. So I think the biggest thing for us at that time in 2007, 2008 was that as a very small American brand, we were able to work with the Japanese mill and custom design a fabric to our specifications and have it woven to our specifications. And it wasn't just a fabric that we found that was left over from a bigger brand, or that the mill was making constantly and offering to a bunch of different brands. So for us as a very small brand, that was really what we were able to hang our hat on, and what set us apart at a very early stage in the game.
What was that like, walking into the mill and getting because I have to think that not many people would come in on that scale wanting something that specific, or am I wrong?
It's just, it's a numbers game, and it's an improbability for brands our size, because usually the minimums are around 10,000 yards. A mill can really tell you whatever they want if they want your business, but usually at that time it was around 10,000 yards. 10,000 yards is about 3,000 pairs of jeans in one color. So you can make it across a couple of different cuts. You can make it in a jacket and 3 cuts or something like that. But it's still a lot of units, and for a brand our size, and most brands our size, there's just no way that you could commit to that much fabric. And not only that, but like, can't really just offer one color of denim if you're trying to like build something, So I think we did 2 or 3 to start off with, maybe 2. And they allowed us to take a portion of it at a time, and they sat on the rest.
Wow.
So that we didn't have to take it all at once. Yeah, we wanted something that broke in very nicely. It was very rigid, that broke in nicely, but it wasn't painful or super uncomfortable to wear. And so a really strong selling point, or something that a lot of customers early on really gravitated towards, is that the underside of the denim almost feels brushed. It's very soft. So for people who are a little bit intimidated by the entire world of raw denim or the idea of breaking in a pair of jeans, it was surprisingly comfortable right at the onset, with the fabric being quite a bit softer on the inside, but still over time breaking in very nicely.
Yeah, it absolutely does that. I mean, this is a ego inflator for you guys. I was telling Nick, and I might regret saying this on like a broadcast thing, but I have 3 pairs of things, or 3 items from you guys, and they happen to be my 3 favorite things of that type.
Wow.
I've got the jeans, and I've got this shirt. I think you call it a shirt. A lot of people confuse it as a jacket. And then my wife surprised me with a gift for my birthday a year or so ago. And Nick suggested that she pick up one of the sweatshirts for me. And here's the inflating ego part, is those 3 things are my only pieces of clothing that, number one, I like. They find them to be comfortable, but also I get compliments on them frequently. So for example, on a sweatshirt, most people just go, oh, whatever, hooded sweatshirt, hoodie. But I have close friends of mine that say, wow, what's up with that shirt? It looks nice. There's something special to it. So there's your compliment for the day, guys. But
thank you.
How are you going to ever have any other guests on this podcast?
Yeah, I know, like nobody's ever going to come on here.
Shut it down.
So I feel like you guys have some sort of special sauce, and I want to know what it is. What's the special sauce behind you?
I'll add to that a little bit, just because
you got the same experience.
Well, I love your guys' stuff, and I think for whatever reason you hit me at the right time of life, because as I've started to become like an old man and have become more and more resistant to change. So I'm like, just go to 3sixteen site. I'm sure they've got something that's great, that's awesome, that'll fit me, that I'll love. But yeah, I think that feels right for some reason. And I don't know if it's a fit thing or if it's a
material. I think it's the materials. My suspicion is you guys are selecting materials, and maybe the cuts, I think, is another thing about your jeans that maybe you want to go into a bit.
Well, here's the thing about cuts. Sorry to cut you off real quick.
No. You go.
Cuts are important, but they're not the end all be all, in my opinion, because cuts are super subjective. And there are plenty of people out there. I'm really glad the stuff fits you guys well and you guys love it. But there are plenty of people out there.
We're big birdie guys.
Who complain about the cuts of our jeans or the cuts of our t-shirts or the cuts of our hoodies. And so that's one thing about cuts. You cannot be everything to everybody. And there are so many body types out there, and there are so many opinions on how things should fit, that's just super subjective. And it's also very replicable. I could take somebody's pair of jeans and make a pattern off of it and copy it pretty closely. So in my opinion, those aren't necessarily differentiating factors between brands or between products in terms of quality. That's really a designer's opinion on how they want the garment to fit and how it should turn out. On the other hand, fabric, that really is a quality discussion. There are higher quality fabrics than others, whereas I don't believe there are higher quality cuts per se than others. There's a general baseline of how things should fit, but at the end of the day, that is a personal opinion. That's that's a preference sort of thing. Sorry to cut you off, Andrew.
No, you nailed all of that. I did want to say though that part of the importance of us developing our own fabric is the fact that we wanted to be able to offer something to people that they could come back to all the time. There are definitely people out there who love trying new things and experiencing how different brands work for them, and they're always their closet is full of a ton of different jeans from different brands. And then we have other customers that have been coming to us for years and years and years because it's reliable. They know what they're going to get. They know that the cut's not going to change, the fabric isn't going to change. And yeah, we have one customer who's been shopping with us in New York for 10 years, and he keeps on buying the CT100X jean, and he loves it. There are other things that he's tried from us, but he keeps on coming back to that one. And so, Nick, when you talk about just knowing what you like, that's a really important foundational part of what we want to offer in the brand, is that the core items are things that you know that you could depend on. And of course, on a seasonal basis, that's our sandbox to explore and to introduce new ideas, and also to keep us excited, to keep our customers excited. But the jeans, the sweatshirts, the t-shirts, they should all be super, super consistent.
Yeah, it's great. I think, I mean, stuff lasts too. I mean, I'm wearing chinos right now because I'm, again, becoming an old man, but yeah, I love them. But
well, maybe we can talk about collabs too, because I think, Nick, you've been a facilitator,
yeah, and I don't know,
of sorts.
I don't know how much, well, I don't know. I play a small part. I don't know how much of it you can talk about, but I know you've got, and we can cut whatever of this out or all of it out, but
or even collabs from the past.
yeah, we can talk about collabs from the past ones. I mean, the one I don't know about, I only know the ones that I've been lucky enough to be part of, but I know there's some stuff coming up too for a sort of a milestone anniversary. And I don't know how much of that you can talk about or want to talk about, and you don't have to talk about any of it, but I think it's
Nick, you're being so
we'll
careful.
talk about it.
no, I don't, because I don't know, stuff change. I mean, it's not, I mean, we haven't even gone into production on the stuff that we're going to be providing. So I don't know.
We can't tease them. We'll tell them a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll let you be the.
You know, the cool thing is that we were using your products before we had met. When Johan mentioned in fall of 2008 building out a full collection, one of the things that we had was a partnership with Quaddy.
Mm-hmm.
And we designed a new shoe silhouette, which was not really something they did or wanted to do. They accommodated us. We kind of made this we called it the deck chukka, but it was a boat shoe, like a mid boat shoe. And the very first iteration of that was black and navy Chrome XL.
I remember with the white bottom, right, and the white laces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so that was probably the brand's first interaction with Horween, which was really cool. To Phil's point, we've worked with Horween on a number of other things. We worked on Vibrant boots together. We've worked on a number of shot leather jackets together. So it's been a lot of fun. And one thing that I've always been really grateful for is, again, as Johan talked about, with our opportunity to work with fantastic mills to create new things that people wouldn't have access to otherwise. I think it's pretty special that we have a tannery in the US that we have a relationship with, that we can work on brand new things that are made exclusively for us at quantities that are manageable for what we do. Like, we made 100 leather jackets. That's not a lot of leather jackets. But we were able to create something that, that wasn't out there, that wasn't something that was sitting on a rack that we grabbed and used. And we were able to kind of pass a vision on to Nick, and, a very elementary vision, and allow the experts to really kind of bring it to fruition. Again, in small batches, which is
the rough out jacket you did was shot. What was the leather on that, Nick?
Sonoma.
It was like rough out Sonoma, which is not leather you produce a ton of, but you did something different on the rough outside. And for me, that jacket, when I saw Nick put it on for the first time, there's something magical about that jacket. I love like
We love that jacket.
it's got like
Yeah.
a shimmer to it that's incredible. And even Nick was saying it's like always feels wet, which is, I don't know, is that
Yeah.
a good thing?
I mean, I like it. It's like, I don't know, there's a richness to that jacket, and it's beefy though. I mean, there's no
Beautiful.
question about it, but it's great. Yeah, it's great.
So what are some of
Johan,
your
do you
guys?
have that one?
I do. Yeah.
You have it. Yeah. I love that one because I think the idea behind that was to try and mimic what you would do to rough out footwear if you were going to try and treat it and seal it. If you look at old boots that have like snow seal or some kind of like pitch blend on it, it kind of has that sheen at some parts and matteness at other parts. And when the boots get thrashed with that sealant or coating on it, it keeps changing. And I think that was the idea that we had brought to you, which had never been done. And it made for a very heavy leather, admittedly. It's not for the faint of heart, but I remember people going nuts over it when we released it. Specifically on Style Forum, there were a lot of people with more refined leather jacket tastes, and they were really, really into the way that it looked.
Incredible jacket. You guys really nailed it on that one. So what
you, yeah.
can we look forward to for the 15th anniversary? You want to tease some of that?
20th anniversary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
20th.
Gosh, 2002?
2003.
Oh my goodness. 2003? Jeez.
Yeah, the number doesn't seem real to us either.
Gosh.
Yeah, to do anything in life for 20 years is kind of crazy. So it is something we're really thankful for, and it's November now, right? So it's right around the corner. There's a lot to be done. Thankfully, Nick and the people at Horween are hard at work on. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that we would want to do a special leather for the 20 year, and it will be applied to a shot jacket, but it will also be applied to some other things that we're gonna experiment with and see what happens.
Incredible.
How is that leather going, Nick?
It's good. It's the material selection that you guys, or the way you select materials, is a little bit different than most people. So I enjoy that because it's not. I mean, I sent you a few different options, and you didn't go with the mainstream option, which I think that's good. But that makes it fun too,
Yeah.
because we're not
We all definitely went with the weirder one.
Yeah.
And I think that this is an opportunity to have fun with it. So,
I mean, I liked it. I sent it. I thought it was cool enough to send, but yeah, something it's nice that, I mean, and those couple of jackets we just talked about, or that, especially that rough out jacket, is a perfect example where that's not the norm. But yeah, we're working on it.
I can't wait. I'm the only one of this party that doesn't know what you're doing, and I'm very excited.
it's good. It's nice to have some surprises. Just in this day and age where you can see and have access to everything, it's fun for there to be some surprises along the way.
Absolutely, guys. Well, I think we got to wrap it up. I know we're on a bit of a timeline here, but I very much appreciate you guys and what you do, and it's been a real, like, this podcast right now. I'm very happy because this is very special for me to meet the people behind the stuff I love. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks
for
for the
being
time and the opportunity. Any closing things? Any other things you want to? We got a couple minutes.
I mean, if you guys want to direct people to places where they can see your stuff, or any social media type of things that you're into, or anything like that, or other, if we're gonna do a little bit longer here, sometimes Nick and I on the show will do pieces of media that we're interested in, like movies and TV and books,
Or just favorites in general.
Yeah,
which I think if you guys have any favorite stuff, that would be
kind of fun to hear.
That would be. Johan, what kind of watch are you wearing today?
I am wearing a 5513 Submariner.
Nice.
The first, pretty much the first watch. Pretty much the first watch I ever bought.
I saw Andrew. I saw your watch was peeking out too. I can see it right
Is
now.
it?
Yeah, you're blinging.
Yeah, I only have one Rolex, and it's a modern. It's a two-tone date sub, 2021.
Nice, very nice.
So
I didn't mean to hijack favorites, but if you guys have any favorites, because you're plugged into a lot of stuff that we like too, but I don't know.
Yeah, what are you guys into these days?
I don't have a lot of time to consume media these days. I am really looking forward to watching the new White Lotus. That I think there's 3 episodes in on, and I haven't started yet. So I really like the first season, and I'm interested in seeing where they take it with the second season.
That's a crazy show.
I haven't seen it.
I saw the first season. It's pretty wild. It's
Worth watching.
Yeah, it's worth watching.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, I'm putting that on the list. I have a little bit more time because my boys are older and are a bit more self-sufficient. They're 11 and 10. So I've started to rediscover hobbies, I guess.
Yeah, free time. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I mean, some of that comes at the neglect of kids, right? I'll just be like, you do what you want to do so that I can do what I want to do. But I feel like maybe I can be a better dad if I can take some time for myself. And sometimes that stuff overlaps. Like I've been trying to, I haven't had any in a while, but I've been trying to take bowling lessons. My wife has always been into bowling, and my younger son has really gotten into it and is part of a weekly league. So in order to enjoy the time with them, and also to try and not be embarrassed at our company outings, I'm trying to get a little better at bowling. So that's been fun. I don't know. I just throughout the past 10, 15 years, any opportunity that I have to get better at something I'm not good at is fun, just to see what you're capable of.
Nice.
So there's that. And then this Thursday, a friend of mine and I are going to do this little experiment and see if it works or not. But we're trying to put together a replica of a Japanese hi-fi listening experience.
Whoa, what is that?
So in Japan, they have these thing called kisatens, and it's basically it's a cafe where you would go to listen to records. And it's not like a party where you're just hanging and talking to people. You go there and you have drinks and you listen to the music that's being played. And you don't choose the music. The person who runs the bar, runs the cafe, chooses the music. Oftentimes you listen to the entire record instead of, there's no mixing.
Yeah.
And the music is kind of front and center. We had gone to visit another one of these types of places in New York City, and it was really cool. Just thought might be fun to do something on our own with the music that we want to listen to, and see if we can get other people in a big city that has a lot of stuff going on to come out for it. So this Thursday is our test run. We'll see if it works out or not. But we did some sound checks today, and yeah, I fear that hi-fi is going to be something that could become a bit of a problem. I buy records, but I try not to get too into equipment stuff, because I know how deep of a hole that can be. But even hooking up the amplifier to, he's got some vintage Klipsch Heresies that I think they're 40 years old, and we hooked them up today, and I plugged in my amp, which is stronger than the one that he has at home, and we're blown away by what comes out of those speakers.
You guys actually mentioned, or you mentioned that you guys met over your similar taste for music and sneakers. What's the musical genre that was?
I guess it would have been hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
I remember even like a month after meeting, I was on a road trip with friends, and we passed through San Francisco, and I ripped a bunch of Johan CDs when we were stopping through.
Remember that?
Yes.
Ripping CDs.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, we came to your house, and you had a Mos Def CD, and I wanted it, so I just took out my laptop and copied it.
Nice.
So yeah, there's that, but for the purposes of this thing, I think it's going to be jazz and jazz adjacent, because I think that's kind of what we're into. And also this is what a lot of these Japanese cafes. So the interesting history behind it is that they were opened after World War II, and predominantly because people lived in very small spaces and couldn't afford to have a system, or couldn't really play it loudly. And so people would just kind of gather in these places, but not to hang out and talk, but to actually listen. And we've visited them in Japan. I've always found it to be a really special thing. So I don't know.
That's so cool.
We'll see.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah.
I'll have to.
Can you spell that? What that's called again?
Kisaten, Kissaten. And there is a Japanese magazine called Jazz Kissa, and they actually go and photograph and document these cafes, and then publish little magazines. Because, to be honest, a lot of them are probably going to be closing down, and when the owner passes away, the child probably doesn't want to take it over. So it's kind of like this weird little relic that may not be around for that long. So yeah, look into it.
I will
Definitely.
As far as plugging where to find us, you can find us on Instagram at 3sixteen, the number 3 and the word 16 spelled out. Johan's at Johan316. I'm at Andrew316. Website is the same thing. And follow us on TikTok if you're on TikTok. We have a lot of fun over there, and
For
it's
real?
just a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a much looser and more engaging format where we can talk without having to put up these really beautiful feed photos. It's just a lot more fun and interactive over there.
Would you recommend that a brand like Horween Leather hop on TikTok?
It's kind of a no-brainer for Horween. If you can find someone who can film stuff. And the other thing is just it's very fly by the seat of your pants. Do it on your phone. You don't need a professional setup. People don't want to see really professionally produced things there. If you go and you be like, this is what we're tanning today, that's the stuff that people are really, really into seeing.
All right.
No brainer.
I've resisted both TikTok and video successfully for a long time, but maybe that time is coming to an end.
This 120
I don't know. I don't think that there's
Yeah.
people on TikTok that are like, man, I'm really looking for this tannery right now. But I think if you do something special and you want to be able to lift the curtain and show people what it's like, I think that there's a lot of value there.
Nice.
All right, Andrew, I'll try.
All right, we gotta take off, guys, but I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.